So I decided to redraw my first comic page ever. So I drew this way back in 2012. I thought it would be a really fun idea to try and redraw it and see kind of my progress, how I'd lay out pages differently and, draw the character differently, because we started Sovereign, so that's what this page is from. We started Sovereign back in 2012 and then worked on it for 5 years, so the character's design has changed a lot. Not too much. I guess more my style with him has changed a lot. His design was actually pretty consistent. It didn't change too much throughout the comic. Like, a lot of my character designs will slightly change. So Zoltar, that's this character's name, the amazing Zoltar. We had a very clear design for him when it started, so it was very easy to stay consistent with him. Anyways. But yeah, this is crazy to me because my style back when I started was so weird. It was so faux anime, and I was trying so hard to make it look cute and shiny, but it was really just turning out muddy and misshapen and weird. Maybe I'll go into this old drawing a little bit and critique it, because man, it is flawed. So number one, the contrast in the old image is super weird. It's got high contrast, but there's no in between. Because it's either his skin is pale white yellow. I don't know what I was doing there. And all his clothing is black and his hair's black, and there's a few pops of color where I've done overlay effects, but other than that, it's all super washed out and gray and muddy or pitch black. So yeah, not a good start for a colorful comic that's supposed to be all bright and cute. And a lot of the shadows and highlights on it are really weird. I was trying to do really soft shading on everything. I mean, part of it he's in a spotlight, so I wanted it to feel like he's got a bunch of lights put on him. But yeah, it mostly just turned out making him look really what's the word? Lumpy? He looks really weird. So yeah, so in the new picture I wanted to make him look a lot more solid and have the lighting make a bit more sense and fix the perspective problems. So yeah. So that was my old art. Very, very weird. I did not understand color theory or contrast at all. I made everything look really muddy. And by muddy, I mean everything looked really gray or really muted. Someone had just mixed mud into the paint. And eventually, I got to using more vibrant colors as the comic went on, but Sovereign was very lacking in color, in good color theory stuff, because I was despite working on a color comic for 5 years, I didn't get it, so, there's that. And I think a bunch of that came from, thinking I knew what I was doing and never, studying what I was doing, which I did start to do a lot more heavily when we started 9 Point, when we were okay, we want to do another color comic, but let's do it right this time. So yeah, that's the importance of studying. Because you might think your pages look really good and colorful, but then they don't, because you didn't do your homework. So yeah, that's my advice to you. Always look into things, because you can always improve your stuff. Yeah. Oh man. But yeah, I used to be super embarrassed about early Sovereign pages, because like I said, they're so weird and bad, and I had no idea what I was doing. However, they now hold a place of endearment in my heart, because, they were my first comic pages, and they're super weird and wonky, but man, 17-year-old Ursula was trying really hard. So kudos to her. But yeah, but we were still able to get the tone of our story across. It's not a super well structured comic from a writing sense, but it's still it was really fun to read and fun to work on, because it's an adventure comedy type thing. And so if you look at it, the story, it's a lot of just characters running around and not really having, like, an aim or a goal. However, it's really cute and funny, and the characters are really cute. Like, the best part of it is just when the different characters are, like, interacting or trying to, like, solve a problem together. And Zoltar, he is the best. He's one of my faves. Just because he's so funny and, like, rude. If you ever want to read Sovereign, go check it out, because it's a hot mess, but it's really fun. And we were surprised. So we worked on Sovereign for, like, 5 years, and for the first, like, 4 of those, no one paid attention to it. And I understand why, because the art was really, like, cruddy and weird, and, like, you know, the story didn't have, like, a strong leg to stand on. But then, like, I think through the last year, my art improved enough that more people were looking at it, and I think we'd gained a bit of a following through, like, our other comics, so Pretty Mouth and Magpie. So people started reading it because they wanted to see more of our work, and they were like, what? This is so funny and cute. And we were like, what? Who are you people? Where did you come from? And we'd already made plans to, like, end it early. So in our first, like, draft of Sovereign, we'd planned it to be, like, this really long story, like an epic adventure story, where they, like, travel around all the 12 kingdoms and, like, meet all the different rulers of the kingdoms and, like, delve into all the characters' backstories. But by the time we were 4 years in, we just didn't have the readership or the interest. So we were like, okay, we'll end it early. It'll feel a little weird, but, like, at least we'll finish the story and we can move on to something better that's, like, has a better foundation to succeed. But then when we were already, like, on our way to ending it, and we were, like, into the last act and, like, nearly the last few scenes, people were then reading it and being like, oh my gosh, I love this, I hope this never ends, and we were like, oh no. So that's, like, really cool and really humbling, I think. That this, like, crazy little comic that was, like, our first comic ever that we worked on together, that people actually started reading it and people really liked it. So that was really, like I said, humbling and very, very rewarding for all our years of work on it. Yeah, it's definitely crazy seeing, like, the old art compared to the new art, like, just redrawing the same thing, because I rarely go back and redraw my old stuff. Bones and I tend to be very, like, we're always watching the horizon. We're always looking for, like, the next thing we can do that will, like, you know, improve our work, or, you know, the next new fun project. And sometimes that's to our detriment, and sometimes it's, like, a very great thing to do, because we're never, like, you know, really dwelling on the past, but we're also not really, like, I don't know, sometimes I think we run ahead a little too quickly. Anyways. But it was really fun to kind of sit back and redraw something old and revisit it, and kind of see how far I've come. Because I did notice that, like, I now have a lot more structure to, like, the characters', like, features and their body. I have a better knowledge of how perspective works, though in this image I definitely struggled with it a little bit, where I was like, I don't really get how to draw Zoltar from above. And, like, you can see in this video that I redraw him a million times before I get a pose that I finally like. So yeah, those grid lines, they really help you. Definitely way more structure to my work. The colors I ended up using are a lot more bright, and a little bit more cohesive. I'm actually surprised by how much I enjoy the colors that are present in the old one, because I remember, like, struggling with it so hard. I spent so long on this first page. Like, it was days and days and days of just, like, fiddling around with it and trying to make it work. But I like the oranges and yellows and reds and purples. Like, I think I did okay for someone who didn't know what they were doing. But I definitely wanted to make things a lot more bright and a lot more fun in the new one, and a lot more clear about what's going on, because most of the old image is just, like, hidden in shadows. Because that's one thing I used to do in my comics, was I never added backgrounds. I'm still guilty of it sometimes, but it's usually just, like, due to a tight deadline coming up. So if you ever notice that, like, at the end of a Magpie chapter or issue, there's, like, a bunch of panels that don't have backgrounds, that's because I was hitting the deadline and I had to get the pages out. But yeah, but when I first started comics, all the backgrounds were just kind of like fuzzy impressions of backgrounds because I didn't have the confidence or the knowledge to like actually draw them out. So that's definitely something that my early work was lacking. And I really had to force myself to do that more and actually learn how to draw backgrounds. So yeah, challenge yourself, friends. And it's gotten a lot easier the more I do it. That's what I find, is like the more I get comfortable with drawing backgrounds or drawing, weird perspectives or weird poses, or using different color schemes and, learning all that stuff, like the easier it comes, the more you do it. So yeah, I hope that gives you hope if you're starting out in art and comics and you're like, I can't do any of it. Well, give it 5 years, which is spooky. I know. When I first started comics, like when we had Sovereign and we were like, okay, this is going to take like 10 years to finish because we have this big epic story. I remember at 17, I was like, oh my god, that is my entire life gone on one comic. And I found that super, super scary. I don't know why. Because like now that we're starting the Scourge of 9 Point, we were like, we really want a long running series so that we can start to like really delve deep into the story and like, cultivate like more readers for a longer time. Because that's something we kept getting complaints about for like Pretty Mouth and Sovereign, where they're like, it ended way too early. I don't like this. So we want to be able to have a story that's very satisfying for longtime readers. So for 9 Point, we are planning for it to last like a decade or a long time. Whereas like Pretty Mouth and Magpie, we only expected to last like a handful of years. Anyways, so now we're super excited about it lasting a long time, but in the past I was really afraid of it. Probably just because I was a teenager and the thought of growing up was really scary, but maybe not growing up, but like, it was just like too real. Maybe I had commitment issues, I don't know. Yeah, just different times, different priorities, I guess. What was I saying? Jesus Christ, Ursula, you're an old lady. You're an old lady who can't remember things. Anyways, yeah, so the funny thing is, too, so I remember when I first did this page, like, back in 2012, and it took me, like, weeks, maybe not weeks, but it took me, like, a really long time to finish it, and, like, I was finicking over everything, and, like, redoing things all the time, and redrawing it, and this was back when I used to do everything, like, on paper, and then scan it in. I've since moved everything over to digital, so I just draw everything digitally. But I used to do like traditional first and then scan it and ink it and color it. But I always found that just took too long for me, and it was just easier, and I didn't have to like go wrestle my scanner. So I just switched everything to digital. Anyways, so it took me forever to get this done, and then through recording the redraw. And admittedly, the redraw is a little rushed because I was like, I'm not going to spend too much time perfecting this because I don't plan to, like, post it anywhere, really. It was just a challenge, like, the overall structure of the page. But through recording, it felt like it took, like, 6 hours. Like, I was so tired when I finished it. And, like, it was midnight, and I was like, oh my god, I want to go to bed. I've been here forever. And then we compiled all the footage. So it was, like, 5 parts of footage, and each were, like, half an hour to 20 minutes long. And Bones was like, it only took you, like, 2 hours and 14 minutes to finish this drawing. And I was like, oh my god. What the heck? So I'm so proud of me. And I think that comes from the other lesson I've learned through comics, is just like, speed is kind of everything. Okay, it's not everything. So recently I've been trying to like slow down my work to focus on details. And like, that's what I did notice about this redraw, was like, there's a lot of little details that were like, the corners of things aren't colored in, or like, I could spend a lot more time really finicking with the colors to make them perfect. And that's something I really want to do going forward, is just like make my art a lot more quality and a lot more polished. However, speed really helps when you're working in comics, because you got to put out a lot of pages really quick, and it's a very valuable skill to have. And like, when I stopped worrying about all the little details in Sovereign pages way back in like 2012 when we were working on it, and I started really focusing on like the quantity of output rather than the quality. Like, the improvement came just naturally as I drew more and more, but I was still putting out more quicker. So instead of like spending weeks on one page, not really improving a lot, but getting the page to like quote unquote perfection, it was all this time where I could have made like 10 pages and improved like 10 times as much. So like early on, I really wish that I had sped up my process a little bit more. Cause like I said, I was working on like huge batches of pages really, really quickly, and I started improving really, really quickly. So yeah, just get it out quickly and eventually the quality will catch up with you. Yeah, because it's been in the past like couple of years where I really like, okay, I need to buckle down and really focus on quality, and that's really paying off now because I have a lot of the skills and knowledge to like support the quality. This isn't to say that that's like the only way to do it, that's just how I went about things. I think what also contributed to the speed of this redraw is that I was like, I really want to get this video out because it has to go out tomorrow. So I was like zooming through. That's maybe something else that's like to my detriment, is like running really close to deadlines. Make sure to give yourself a lot of grace time on your projects so that you can have the time to like really fix small details. I think I've talked about this before, but my other problem with like quality is that I tend to work really big, like I look at the big picture rather than the small details, which is very good for when you're like beginning to work on something, like when you're starting to do the sketch or like, putting down the initial color palette or something. Like it's really important to work big to see like the overall picture, to make sure that your composition is working, that your color palette's working, that everything looks okay together, and then you start like going in tighter and tighter until you finally get to like the little details. Because if you start with little details, then you're gonna get like really wrapped up in these things that no one's going to see. It might throw off your composition. You might have weird anatomy because instead of looking at how it all works together, you were just looking at, say, like the hands. So it is really important to like start big and then get smaller. But my problem is I start big and I never get smaller. So I think I have the opposite problem of a lot of people. So that's something I really need to challenge myself with in the future. And maybe in a couple years I'll do another redraw of this page. That could be fun. Oh man, it's so crazy looking at this. Like, my comic journey. Oh man. I'm like filled with nostalgia. I really love Sovereign. Like I said, it's just got this place of like love and endearment in my heart because it was like Babby's first comic. It was so good. It was based off a role play between me and Bones and one of our friends, and then Bones and I just took it and turned it into a comic. And yeah, like I met so many friends through Sovereign, like people who were longtime readers, or like I don't know, it was my first step into like the webcomic scene, and yeah, it's just crazy how far we've come and how many comics we've done since 2012. Like I think Bones and I are usually really focused on output, that we don't always like stop to celebrate like where we are or what we've done, or stop to really appreciate all the hard work that we've done. So I guess this is me trying to appreciate the hard work. Alright, I think that's all I have for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, or if you'd like to request a video topic, please leave a comment down below. Let me know about, if you've ever revisited old work, or how was your first comic experience? How did that go? I'd love to know. Leave a comment down below, and don't forget to subscribe if you want way more cool videos about comics and art and all that good stuff. So yeah, thanks again for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye!